Hello everyone, and welcome back to English Talking Today. It's great to be with you again. I'm Emily.
And I'm William. It's a real pleasure to have you all listening again.
So, William, last time we talked about the power of daily practice, right? We had this really great conversation about how it's not about these massive, hours-long study sessions, but rather those small, consistent efforts. We use the analogy of watering a plant a little bit every day instead of drenching it once a week.
Exactly. And I remember talking about how daily practice is like building language muscles. You don't go to the gym once for 6 hours and expect to be a bodybuilder. You need to consistently put in the representatives. We touched on the why, the psychology of it, and the how, giving a few examples of how to fit it in.
Right. And what I really want to do today is dig even deeper into both of those concepts. Let's start with the why. We talked about the brain building new pathways, but let's go a step further. What's happening in our minds when we do this daily practice?
It's a fascinating process, and it really comes down to neuroplasticity. The brain is incredibly adaptable. Every time you practice a new word, a new grammatical structure, or even just think in English, you're strengthening a neural connection. Imagine a path through a grassy field. The first time you walk it, it's just a faint line. But if you walk that same path every single day, it becomes a clear, defined trail. That's what you're doing in your brain. You're creating these superhighways for the language.
I love that analogy. A superhighway for language. It makes so much sense. It's not just about memorizing facts. It's about making the language feel natural and automatic. That's why fluency isn't about being perfect. It's about being able to access what you know quickly and effortlessly.
Precisely. And that's why repetition is so key. The more you use a word or a phrase, the stronger the connection becomes, and the more easily you can retrieve it from your memory. It moves from being something you have to actively think about to something that just flows out. This is the difference between a beginner who has to translate in their head and an advanced speaker who can just think and speak in English.
Yeah, let's do it. For our beginners, the goal isn't to be perfect. It's to build a foundation and get comfortable. I always tell my students to start with listening. Just 10 minutes a day. It could be a simple children's story, a podcast like this one, maybe a slower-paced one, or even just listening to a few English songs with the lyrics. The goal is to get your ear used to the sounds and rhythm of the language.
So, with that understanding of the why, let's move on to the how. Last time, we gave a few general tips, but I think it would be helpful to get a lot more specific and break it down by level.
That's such a great point, William. It's about a small, consistent win every day. Now, for our intermediate learners, the landscape changes a bit. You already have a foundation, so the focus should be on building complexity and fluidity. One thing I love is using a language learning app like Duolingo or Babbel for a short, daily session, but then also trying to apply what you're learning in a real-world context.
And for speaking, it can be as simple as narrating your day to yourself in your head. I am drinking coffee. The sun is shining. This is a private, low-pressure way to start forming sentences. You don't have to say it out loud if you're not comfortable. And for vocabulary, rather than trying to memorize a list of 50 words, just choose 2 or 3 new words and try to use them in a sentence. Even one sentence. That's enough.
And for our advanced learners, the challenge is often maintaining fluency and continuing to grow. It's easy to get complacent. I suggest tackling more complex and specific tasks. For listening, try listening to a more challenging podcast like a news program or a scientific discussion. For speaking, try explaining a complex topic to an imaginary person. Like, try to explain your job, a movie you just watched, or a historical event, all in English. This pushes you to use a wider range of vocabulary and sentence structures.
Yes. For example, change your phone's language to English. You'll be surprised how quickly you pick things up. For speaking, try a shadowing exercise. Listen to a short clip from a show or a podcast and try to repeat the sentences exactly as you hear them, matching the rhythm and intonation. This is a powerful way to improve your accent and pronunciation. And for writing, try keeping a short daily journal. Just a few sentences about your day. It forces you to actively use the language and find the right words.
Okay, so we've talked about what to do, but what about when you just don't want to? We've all been there. You get home from a long day, you're tired, you're unmotivated. How do you handle feeling stuck or uninspired?
And for reading, read a full-length book in English, not just an article. And for vocabulary, focus on nuance and idioms. Try to find 5 new words a week and create a small story using all of them. This is a great exercise for solidifying what you've learned.
I love that. A lot of people feel guilty, and then that guilt turns into them just stopping altogether. They think, oh, I messed up my streak, so I might as well give up. But the most important thing is to reset. Just say, okay, I missed yesterday. I'm going to do my 10 minutes today. Even if it's just 1 minute, that's a win.
That's a really crucial part of this. It's the troubleshooting of daily practice. The first thing is to be kind to yourself. Don't see skipping a day as a failure. See it as a temporary pause. The key is to have a plan for getting back on track.
I agree. Another common problem is feeling stuck at a certain level. You feel like you're not improving, you're making the same mistakes, and it can be so frustrating. My advice here is to change your method. If you've been focused on listening, maybe it's time to put more emphasis on speaking. If you've been using one app, try a different one. A change of routine can often reignite your interest and reveal new areas for improvement.
Exactly. And on those days when you're just not feeling it, just lower the bar. Instead of a full journal entry, maybe you just write 1 sentence. Instead of a 10-minute podcast, you listen to a 2-minute song. The goal is just to not break the habit entirely. Think of it like this. A language muscle doesn't get weaker from 1 day off. It gets weaker from 2 weeks off. A small, consistent effort is always better than no effort.
Yeah, they write it down with the translation. I do that sometimes. But the word stays in your notebook, not in your brain.
You mentioned vocabulary and pronunciation earlier, and I think those are perfect examples of how daily, small efforts can make a massive difference. For vocabulary, the mistake most people make is trying to learn words in isolation. They see a new word and they just write it down.
I love that. The idea is to keep it fresh without constantly hammering it. And for pronunciation? I know so many people who are afraid to speak because they're worried about their accent. What are some small, daily things they can do?
Exactly. The key is to learn words in context. When you come across a new word, don't just write it down. Write down the whole sentence it came from. And then, a few days later, revisit that sentence. This is the concept of spaced repetition. You review the words at increasing intervals of time. You don't have to do it with a fancy app. You can do it with flashcards. You review them more often at the beginning, and as you remember them, you can review them less frequently.
Which brings us to another important point: community. We often think of language learning as a solitary activity, but it doesn't have to be. Finding a practice partner or a learning community can be a game changer for consistency. It introduces a layer of accountability.
I think the most effective thing you can do for pronunciation is to simply listen and repeat. Listen to a native speaker say a short phrase and try to mimic their intonation, the rhythm of their speech, and the sounds. Don't worry about being perfect. Just try. You can do this with our podcast, with a short YouTube video, or even with a friend.
And it normalizes the struggle, too. You see someone else saying, "I felt so unmotivated today," and you realize you're not alone. It builds confidence and makes the entire process more enjoyable.
That's absolutely right. When you know you have a friend who's also learning and you plan to meet for a short English conversation once a week, it forces you to practice. And it takes the pressure off. You're both in the same boat. It's not about being perfect, it's about connecting. Even an online group where people share their daily progress can be incredibly motivating. You see others putting in the work, and it makes you want to keep going.
So, as we wrap up, I think we've covered a lot. From the why, the mental superhighways we're building, to the how, all the different specific exercises for different levels, and finally, to how to overcome obstacles and find a community.
The core message, as always, remains the same. The biggest successes in language learning don't come from a single, heroic effort. They come from a mountain of small, consistent, daily steps. A little bit of practice every day is what truly adds up. It's the difference between wishing you could speak English and actually doing it.
That's so true. It's not magic, it's momentum. And it's all about building a habit. So, our challenge to you, our listeners, is to take just one of the tips we've discussed today and try it for the next 7 days. Just one small thing. Maybe it's listening to one song in English a day, or writing one sentence in a journal, or trying to explain something to yourself in your head.
And then, tell us about it. Share your experience with us on our social media channels. Let us know what you chose and how it felt. Your feedback helps us and inspires other learners.
We'll be back next time, and we can't wait to hear from you. Until then, keep practicing, and we'll see you soon.
Bye for now.